In the grim darkness of the far future, even the mightiest warriors fall. The Adeptus Astartes, clad in ceramite, gene-forged and sworn to the Imperium, are spoken of as immortal giants. Yet beneath the armor, beneath the oaths and the legend, they are flesh, blood, and spirit. What becomes of these demigods when that flesh is broken, when the blood runs dry, when their spirit falters? Do they vanish into silence, remembered only in the war chants of their chapter? Or does their fate twist into something stranger, something darker, something whispered in the hidden vaults of the Imperium? Tonight we walk the long road of the fallen space marine. From the battlefield corpse left among the ashes, to the sacred sarcophagi where the honored dead are entombed, to the rumors no imperial priest dares to speak aloud. This is not the tale of their glory, it is the tale of what comes after. And if you find yourself drawn deeper into the shadows of the Imperium, carried by the echoes of these warriors who stood between mankind and extinction, then join us in this journey. Like, share and subscribe so that others too may hear the fates that the Codex does not speak of and the ecclesiarchy dares not proclaim. The silence after battle is never true silence. It carries with it the echoes of what has just transpired, the ghost of gunfire, the memory of screams. Across the ravaged plain, the air still trembles with heat, thick with the bitter tang of promethium and the metallic sting of blood. Smoke coils from shattered manufactorum ruins, twisting into the sky like incense for a god that has no name. The ground is churned mud and broken stone, cratered by artillery shells, blackened by plasma bursts. And within that ruin lie the bodies, countless bodies, guardsmen sprawled in heaps, Skitarii scattered like dismantled puppets, and towering among them, the corpses of space marines. To stand so close to one of these fallen is to confront something at once awe-inspiring and terrible. Even in death they are colossal, their ceramite armor blackened but unbroken, fists clenched as if defying mortality itself. A dead Astartes is not like a dead man. He does not diminish in death. He seems to expand, as though the weight of his absence pulls the world down around him. His lifeless eyes, hidden behind shattered lenses, gaze toward nothing, yet the very posture of his corpse insists on meaning. The battlefield becomes his tomb, and yet it feels unworthy, mud and ash against the grandeur of a demigod's sacrifice. But the battlefield is not patient. Time begins its slow desecration almost at once. Already the scavengers stir. Feral carrion birds circle overhead, descending in ragged flocks to peck at anything soft, their talons screeching against ceramite as they try and fail to pierce armor they cannot understand. Packs of feral dogs, half-starved and wild-eyed, creep out from ruins, drawn by the stench of blood. Even servitors, their minds long reduced to cogs and fragments of programming, move through the wreckage in jerking patterns, their dead eyes scanning for salvage. And among them, there are always men, wretches in rags, the forgotten survivors of the war-torn world, risking blasphemy by prying at the armor of a god in hopes of stripping it for scrap. It is here that the fate of the fallen begins to diverge. For if his brothers come, they will carry him with reverence, chanting the hymns of return, each step heavy with ritual. They will not allow his corpse to remain among the mud and scavengers, nor his gene seed to lie unrecovered. Yet should they be cut off if retreat was too swift or the tide too overwhelming, then the body of the Astartes lies at the mercy of the world and of those who would exploit it. For enemies know the value of such remains. Orc mechboys salivate at the chance to rip apart a marine's armor for its secrets. The Dark Mechanicum sends their thralls to collect every fragment of gene-enhanced tissue, every cogitator scrap, every twisted plate of ceramite. Even Chaos Warbands, when they cannot claim a warrior alive, will take him dead, bending his remains into icons of mockery, or using his bones for rituals best left unspoken. Imagine, then, the sight of a fallen ultramarine upon some nameless battlefield. His armor, cobalt blue once gleaming with the heraldry of Gilliman's sons, lies scorched and cracked, the imperial aquila across his chest plate obscured by soot. His bolter lies a few feet away, magazine emptied, barrel twisted with heat. His hand still grips a combat blade, driven deep into the chest of a slain orc nob, whose green flesh steams in the cold air. Both combatants lie locked in death, a tableau of defiance and savagery. To the untrained eye, they are only corpses, but to the Imperium, this marine is a relic, his body a vessel containing the most sacred of all legacies, his gene seed, the biological treasure from which his chapter may one day rise anew, and so the scavengers watch him. A band of human survivors approaches, clothed in tatters, their eyes hollow with hunger. One reaches toward the fallen marine, hand trembling as he brushes the edge of ceramite. To touch a space marine's armor is to touch divinity, and yet hunger can drive men to blasphemy. His companions urge him on, whispering of the value such armor might fetch, of the tools that could be fashioned from ceramite scraps. But then the silence breaks with the crack of a bolter round, and the scavenger's skull bursts in a spray of red mist. His companions scatter, shrieking. From the smoke strides another giant, a living Astartes, vox grill still hissing with the echo of the shot. He says nothing, for words are unnecessary. He kneels by his brother's side, gauntleted hands moving with reverence as he checks for the gene seed's integrity. For this is the first and greatest duty, to preserve the chapter's future, even from the ashes of the fallen. The battlefield does not forgive. It consumes all who linger. But within that desolation, acts of recovery, of duty, of desperate reverence take place quietly, unseen by most. And where recovery fails, darker hands reach in, claiming what should never be theirs. Thus begins the story of what becomes of a fallen space marine. Before his name is sung, before his memory is sealed, before the chapter decides his legacy. The smoke does not lift quickly. It lingers, crawling across the battlefield like a living thing, concealing bodies and revealing them again with every shift of the wind. A corpse may lie untouched for hours, even days before discovery, and in that time its fate is already being written. For the Imperium, speed is salvation. A fallen Astartes must be found quickly, before his body is consumed by fire or claimed by hands unworthy. Yet war seldom grants such mercy. Entire squads vanish beneath bombardments, entombed in rubble too deep to excavate, their gene seed lost forever. Others are simply abandoned when retreat becomes the only option, left behind not out of neglect, but necessity. The chapter prays that their bodies burn cleanly in the firestorms, leaving nothing for the heretic or Xenos to despoil. But not all are so fortunate. Among the ruins of Velan Prime, where the manufactoria had been reduced to blackened skeletons of steel, the fallen of the Crimson Fists lay for weeks before retrieval was possible. When finally their brothers returned, guided by auspex and sheer determination, they found corpses that had been tampered with. Some were stripped of armor by desperate civilians, the sacred machine spirits torn out and sold piecemeal for food. Others had been mutilated by orcs, painted over with crude glyphs, their skulls mounted on spikes. The sight drove veterans to rage, their oaths of vengeance echoing across the ruin. For to see a brother desecrated is to witness more than death. It is to feel the chapter itself wounded. And yet, desecration is not always deliberate. The galaxy is vast and indifferent, and nature itself often defiles what war leaves behind. On the death worlds, predators learn quickly to associate battlefields with feasts. Razor beasts gnaw on ceramite until their teeth splinter, breaking open armor joints to drag out the flesh within. Winged carrion things, mutated by radiation and warp storms, descend in clouds, stripping even a giant to bone within hours. There are worse still, parasitic organisms that burrow into the bodies of the dead, incubating within gene-altered flesh, creating horrors that stagger across no man's land, half corpse, half parasite, until they collapse again in pieces. To lose a marine's body in such ways is more than tactical failure. It is sacrilege, an erasure of identity, a theft of sanctity. Those who survive the battle and remain behind, however, know both fear and temptation. Among the Astra Militarum, guardsmen whisper tales of what might be found if one dares approach a fallen Astartes. Some say the flesh, if consumed, carries strength. Others believe the armor itself contains fragments of the warrior's soul. Such stories spread like wildfire among the desperate. And though most dare not approach, fearing retribution, there are always a few bold or mad enough to try. Records exist of guardsmen executed on the spot for attempting to cut trophies from a dead marine. To touch such a corpse without sanction is heresy. But heresy grows quickest where hunger gnaws deepest. Yet not all scavengers are lowly men. The servants of chaos watch the battlefields as hunters watch the tree line. To the traitor legions, the corpse of a loyalist Astartes is a prize beyond measure. Some are taken to warp forges, their armor twisted and reforged into profane relics. Others are bound into rituals, their gene seed offered in sacrifice to dark gods. The Iron Warriors are said to display the remains of captured loyalists in their fortress bastions, chained like grotesque statuary, trophies of a war that never ends. There are darker whispers still of fallen marines reanimated by sorcery, their bodies puppeted in mockery of their oaths, their once loyal voices turned against their kin in battle. Whether these stories are truth or heresy, none can say with certainty. But the fear lingers. On some worlds, the battlefield itself becomes the marine's tomb. When the war moves on and no recovery is possible, entire plains become ossuaries of the forgotten. Wind whistles through the broken helms, sand buries the once sacred armor, until only the faint rise of ceramite breaks the horizon. Centuries later, archaeologists stumble upon them, mistaking the remains for statues, until they brush away the soil and see the aquila still etched faintly across the chest plate. The Imperium calls these sites holy, consecrating them as shrines. Pilgrims journey across light years to kneel among the bodies, whispering prayers to warriors who never returned home. In these places, the line between death and sainthood blurs, and the corpses become relics not because they were retrieved, but because they endured untouched. For the Astartes who fall and are not recovered, their fate is both tragic and mysterious. Their brothers mourn them as lost, their names carved into the rolls of the chapter's dead. Yet their bodies may lie in enemy hands, defiled in ways too cruel to imagine. Or perhaps they rest still upon the battlefield, untouched but unremembered, staring up through shattered optics at the stars they once swore to defend. Each fate is a thread in the tapestry of the Imperium's silence, for though the Astartes are mighty, they are not immune to decay. Even giants are claimed by time, and the galaxy spares no body, no matter how sacred. Thus ends the first stage of their journey, not in glory, but in uncertainty. A fallen marine lies where he is slain, and from that moment forward, the fate of his body and legacy rests in the hands of chance, brotherhood, or blasphemy. The battlefield does not care. The galaxy does not pause. Only the chapter remembers, and even memory fades. When the living return to claim their dead, the atmosphere of the battlefield changes. No longer is it only a place of silence, scavengers, and wind. It becomes a sanctified ground, a place of ritual and devotion, where the fallen are not abandoned to ash and carrion, but gathered as relics. For the Adeptus Astartes, recovering a brother's body is not merely duty, it is sacred. Every chapter carries its own rites, words passed down from warrior to warrior across centuries, each gesture heavy with the weight of tradition. The arrival of a recovery detail is never casual. They come armed and alert, bolters raised, for the battlefield is never truly safe. But once the perimeter is secured, their manner changes. Chains wards fall silent, helm lenses dim, voices lower to hushed tones. A brother kneels beside the corpse, gauntleted hand resting against ceramite, as though in final greeting. Auspexes are brought out, scanning for gene seed stability, for damage to the progenoid glands. If they remain intact, hope flickers anew, for in those two glands lies not only the Marine's genetic essence, but the survival of his entire chapter. They are harvested carefully, tools sterilized even in the filth of no man's land, each step accompanied by whispered catechisms to appease the machine spirits of the devices. The act is surgical, yet reverent. No apothecary treats the gene seed as mere tissue. It is the Emperor's legacy, passed from generation to generation, a fragment of divinity encoded in flesh. Once removed, it is sealed in stasis, carried away as though it were a holy relic, never far from the apothecary's sight. Even if the body itself cannot be saved, the gene seed ensures that the warrior's essence will fight again, reincarnated in a future initiate who may never know the name of the one whose legacy he carries. If circumstances allow, the body too is borne away. Brothers lift him not as a corpse, but as a comrade still living, carried upon their shoulders in silence. It is said that no Marine is ever light in death. His armor seems to grow heavier, his weight pressing down upon those who carry him. Yet they do not falter, for to abandon him would be to abandon a part of themselves. Chaplains walk at their side, reciting verses from the canticles of mourning, their croziers lowered in solemn benediction. Even in the chaos of ongoing war, the procession moves as though time itself bends to their stride. There are moments recorded in the annals of chapters where entire squads have fallen in order to reclaim a single body. The salamanders tell of Pyrrhus, who fell upon the ash wastes of Hegron IV. His brothers carried him across leagues of enemy territory, pursued at every step by Xenos predators. Though many were wounded and several slain, they bore him to safety, refusing to let his body be left behind. His sarcophagus rests now in the vaults of Nocturne, guarded as fiercely as any relic. Such stories are spoken not only as inspiration, but as warning. The bond of brotherhood is heavier than ceramite, and its weight must be borne no matter the cost. Yet recovery is not always triumphant. There are times when only fragments can be retrieved. An arm, a helm, a broken pauldron still bearing the heraldry of the chapter. These too are taken, enshrined within reliquaries, honored as though the warrior himself remained intact. In the catacombs of the Dark Angel's Rock lie thousands of such fragments, each etched with runes of remembrance, their origins known only to the chapter. To the uninitiated they may appear as scraps of armor, but to the Astartes they are the proof of sacrifice, the remains of brothers who once stood unyielding in the Emperor's name. And when recovery is impossible, when the battlefield must be abandoned, or the dead are too many to claim, the chaplain stands in the wreckage and speaks the oath of return. His words rise above the silence, echoing across ruins and ash. He promises that though the body may be lost, the spirit endures, that the Emperor himself gathers his sons when the chapter cannot. The brothers bow their heads, not in defeat, but in acceptance. They know the Imperium's wars leave little room for sentiment, yet they cling to the belief that no sacrifice goes unseen. Whether in the halls of their fortress monastery or in the Emperor's eternal light, the fallen are never truly abandoned. Still, there is always unease. For the Astartes know what happens when bodies are left behind. They know the scavengers, the heretics, the predators. They have seen loyalist corpses defiled, twisted, stolen, and so each recovery is a small victory, not only over death but over desecration. Each brother returned is one less relic in enemy hands, one less fragment of the Emperor's design corrupted. To recover the fallen is to defy the galaxy's hunger. To carry them home is to remind the Imperium that even in death, a space marine still serves. And so the battlefield closes its first chapter. Whether abandoned to ash, consumed by beasts, stolen by heretics, or borne away in reverence, The fate of the fallen begins here. Their journey continues beyond the silence into chambers colder and more clinical, where flesh is separated from legacy and the warrior becomes more memory than man. The journey from battlefield to Apothecarion is never long in distance, but it feels infinite in meaning. What was once a warrior, fierce and thunderous in life, now lies in the stillness of a transport bay, attended by brothers who do not speak. Their silence is not grief as mortals would know it. It is a silence carved from duty, the acknowledgement that emotion must wait until the rites are complete. The corpse rests in ceramite still streaked with soot and blood, armor dented and gouged where Xenos blades or heretical rounds found purchase. Every scar is a story, and every story must be catalogued before it vanishes into oblivion. Within the fortress monastery, the Apothecarion is a place of contrast. Bright lumen strips shine across polished steel tables, their white glare erasing the shadow of the battlefield. The air is sterile, filtered through countless scrubbers, scented faintly with oils used to appease the machine spirits of the surgical implements. Here, the chaos of war is stripped away, replaced by method, ritual, and precision. For the apothecaries who serve within these halls, the fallen are not simply corpses. They are archives of both flesh and soul, repositories of history and potential. To mishandle them would be not just failure, but heresy. The body is laid upon the slab, armor slowly and carefully removed. Each plate is unlatched with gestures that mimic benedictions, whispered prayers spoken through vox filters as tools hum and click. The armor is not discarded. It is carried away separately, sometimes to be reforged, sometimes to be interred beside its owner, and sometimes to be cleansed and given anew to another initiate. Each chapter decides differently, but all share the same reverence. No piece of armor is without memory. Once the corpse is bare, the true work begins. The apothecary bends close, tools gleaming beneath the lumen light, scanning for the progenoid glands. One rests near the throat, another deep within the chest cavity. These glands are the essence of the chapter, reservoirs of gene seed painstakingly cultivated, descended from the primarchs themselves. To recover them is to preserve the chapter's bloodline. To lose them is to wound it irreparably. The removal is neither crude nor swift. It is precise, methodical, performed with the focus of a surgeon and the devotion of a priest. As the gland is lifted from flesh, it is placed within stasis canisters etched with the aquila, blessed by incense and litanies. The hum of the stasis field fills the chamber, a quiet reminder that the warrior's death has given life to another who has not yet been chosen. But the work does not end there. The Apothecarion is also the custodian of memory. Each wound is studied, recorded upon data slates in exacting detail. The angle of the blade that pierced the chest, the chemical residue upon burns, the fracturing pattern across shattered bone, all are noted. These records are not for idle curiosity. They teach. They reveal the methods of the enemy, the vulnerabilities of the chapter, the strengths that must be carried forward. In death, the Astartes continues to serve, his body becoming a manual of survival for those yet living. Yet beneath the ritual precision lies a deeper truth, one seldom spoken aloud. In stripping the body of its organs, in cataloguing every inch of its ruin, the Apothecarion dismantles what little remains of the marine's humanity. He ceases to be an individual. His name may live in stone, his deeds may echo in sermons, but his flesh is broken into fragments. Gene seed, armor, tactical lessons, statistical data. He becomes legacy, not man. And perhaps this is necessary. Perhaps it is the only way a chapter can endure across millennia. But it is also erasure, a quiet vanishing, as though the warrior's laughter, his voice, his unrecorded thoughts are dissolved under lumen light. There are whispers among some chapters of apothecaries who struggle with this truth. Men who pause too long before cutting, who speak to the dead as if expecting an answer. Others speak of apothecaries who harden into something colder, who see only glands, tissue, armor, data, not brothers. Neither path is entirely safe. To feel too much is to risk hesitation. To feel nothing is to risk forgetting that beneath the armor was once a man who chose to give everything. Yet both types endure, for the Imperium requires results more than comfort. And so the Apothecarion continues its work, silent but unyielding. The fallen are harvested, preserved, catalogued and consigned. In these chambers, flesh is turned into future, and the warrior becomes both relic and resource. Outside, the fortress monastery resounds with chants and drills, banners flying, war never pausing. But in here, time slows. A single body occupies the full attention of those who serve. For each marine is irreplaceable and yet must be replaced. This paradox is the quiet burden of the Apothecarion, to break a brother in order to ensure the chapter never breaks.